But when I opened my mouth to respond, everything came out wrong. My voice trembled, the words jumbled, and I felt my face flush with embarrassment. I couldn't handle it. I turned and ran into the bushes near the school, hiding like a child I could beat myself. My name is John, and I grew up in a small village in Chile. My country is beautiful, but where I lived, English was hardly spoken. It was the last day of school, and summer break was about to begin. I was helping my teacher, Senora Valentina, pack some books for the library. The hallways were nearly empty, and I was just going through the motions when something happened that would change my life forever. I stepped out of the library, my arms full of books, and that's when I saw her. She had a round face, bright eyes that sparkled in the sunlight, and full lips that curled into the most beautiful smile. My heart stopped for a moment. She was walking towards us, and everything around me seemed to slow down. I was frozen in place, unable to move or even blink. My heart pounded in my chest as she approached Senora Valentina, greeting her with a hug. The girl then turned to me and the other boys. She said something in English, but none of us understood. We just stared blankly, nodding awkwardly as if we knew what she was saying. She smiled again, and I felt a strange warmth inside me, like a spark had ignited. Her voice was soft and melodic, but it might as well have been in another universe. I didn't understand a single word. Later, I found out she was Senora Valentina's granddaughter, visiting from the United States for a couple of weeks. I wasn't registered for summer school, but at that moment I made up my mind. I had to be there. I had to be around her, even if I couldn't speak to her. I quickly rushed to my teacher and told her I wanted to attend summer school. She smiled and agreed. On the first day of summer school, my heart raced as I sat in my seat. I couldn't concentrate on anything but the thought of seeing her again. Senora Valentina introduced her granddaughter to the class as Sophia. She was visiting for 2 weeks, and I could barely breathe when she entered the room. Our eyes met, and I felt like my entire world had flipped upside down. But when she tried to speak to me, I froze. My throat went dry and my tongue felt heavy. Simple words refused to come out. I was stuck. Fear gripped me because I knew zero English. I was terrified that if I spoke, she would laugh at me. So I said nothing. I just nodded like an idiot and smiled awkwardly. That day I made a promise to myself. I would learn English. I didn't know how or where to start, but I had to do it. I couldn't let the opportunity pass me by. I didn't want to be the boy who couldn't speak to the girl who had changed his world. Sophia left Chile and went back to the U.S., but my determination didn't leave with her. I was obsessed with the idea of learning English. One day I lied to Senora Valentina. I told her that I wanted my little sister to learn to speak English, just like her granddaughter. She seems delighted by the idea and handed me a small storybook in English. That's how it all began. I took that book home and I read it over and over. I didn't understand most of it at first, but I kept going. I repeated the words a lot, studied each sentence, but it was hard. I didn't know how to pronounce the words correctly. I didn't have anyone to correct my pronunciation. I couldn't say certain words, for example, morning or please, but I kept going. I didn't give up. Soon I could recite the stories from memory, but it was all wrong. Plus my accent was terrible. I didn't want to hear myself because it was awful. And, to make matters worse, my little sister would cover her ears each time I tried to speak. I took too long to learn English. All I did was to read books, but reading alone won't help you gain fluency fast. You must listen to how the words are pronounced. But don't just listen. You must also repeat the words you hear immediately, so you can start hearing yourself speaking from early. Remember to change the tone of your voice to sound exactly like a native. When I turned 17, Sophia visited Chile again. I'd been waiting for that moment for years, imagining what I would say. I thought I was ready, but boy, was I wrong. When I saw her, my heart nearly exploded out of my chest. She smiled at me just like before, and spoke to me in English. This time I understood some of the words, but when I opened my mouth to respond, everything came out wrong. My voice trembled, the words jumbled, and I felt my face flush with embarrassment. I couldn't handle it. I turned and ran into the bushes near the school, hiding like a child I could beat myself. So angry and ashamed that I threw the storybook into the river. I hated how fear still controlled me. After all these years of reading, I lacked practice. The next day I went to Signora Valentina. Desperate and defeated, I asked for another book, but instead of handing me a new storybook, she smiled gently and told me something different. She said, "It's not just about books anymore. It's about using the language. Your sister must practice speaking English every day because there are many opportunities that come from being bilingual." Then she asked me if I have access to the internet. She asked me if I have access to a computer or a phone. Back then we had no phones and no computers at home. She told me that my sister needs to listen to music and watch educational movies in English. I told her that my little sister spends the summer playing with her dolls. Immediately she registered my sister for computer summer camp. The next day I followed my sister to computer summer camp. Although the teacher wanted me to leave, I stayed and helped her with serving the meal and cleaning the room. She looked forward to see me every day because she was getting help, but I was getting help too. Watching movies and singing songs in English really improved my pronunciation and boost my speaking skills. I finally associate words with their sounds. Listening, reading, and speaking goes hand in hand. You must practice all three to become fluently in English. Back then it was hard to become fluent in English, but today it is easy. Almost everyone had a phone with internet access. You can watch movies and listen to your favorite music on YouTube. There is no time limit. Everything is 24/7. Even if you don't have a friend to practice with, you can practice your speaking skills with ChatGPT, plus it's free. The computer teacher taught me how to introduce myself in English. It was simple but powerful. I practiced every day, repeating my introduction over and over until it became natural. Slowly I began teaching my sister, just like Signora Valentina suggested. We learned together, and little by little, my confidence grew. I was ready to speak. When Sophia came back the next summer, I was 18 years old, and this time things were different. But my mind stood in the way with excuses. What if she laughed at me? What if my voice cracks? We stood in the same place we had first met, and she smiled, waiting for me to speak. My heart raced. I swallowed my spit. I took a deep breath and spoke. "Hello, Sophia. My name is John. It's nice seeing you again. How was your trip?" I said it slowly and confidently. The words were clear and I didn't stumble. I watched as her eyes lit up and she smiled. She smiled like she understood me. Not just my words, but my journey. From that moment, we became friends. True friends. We spoke every day about everything. She taught me English slangs. She corrected my grammar and my pronunciation. I got a part-time job and saved my money. I bought 2 smartphones, one for me and the other for my sister. I spoke to Sophia every day on my smartphone. I also listened to podcasts in my spare time. I noticed something amazing. I can now speak English naturally without thinking. My mind, which had been my biggest enemy, was now my ally. Learning English had always been about more than just words. It had been about overcoming fear, procrastination, and laziness. I keep telling myself that I can do it, and you can do it too, if you only believe in yourself. Now I'm an English professor at a university. I give motivational speeches to students who, like me, are afraid of speaking English. I tell them that the real challenge isn't the language. It's the fear within. The fear you held onto for years. It is holding you back from speaking English. As for Sophia, it's a long story, but to make it short, we got married. We have 2 beautiful children who speak both English and Spanish fluently. Every time I look at them, I'm reminded of the boy who was too scared to speak, and the girl who unknowingly changed his life.